Hi, my name is Ron Tomanio, and I'm one of the hosts of Don't Diss My Ability, seen on PPMTV in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and around the country. Our purpose in creating a DSP, which is a Day Support Person training film, is not to give agencies everything they need to work with people with disabilities, but we do believe that we can make a small contribution by showing you a couple of people who we think are pretty remarkable in what they do, which is working with people with disabilities. And so we're giving you this, and then we're also giving you an interview with the mother of a child with a disability and her view about what would make for a good person to work with people with severe disabilities. This is our contribution. Again, this is not all you need to know, but it is a part of what you need to know. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Ronnie Tomanio. And this is Don't Diss My Ability. My co-host over here, Mr.
Lee Harvey.
Yeah, and
Pamela Sollenberger.
Okay. And John Lovery is part of our crew forever, and he's doing the camera today. But you never know, he could be here next week or whatever. I think every show is important, but this one's on another level. Just had this idea a while back that myself and Pamela and Lee all has experiences with disabilities, either being on one side of the fence or the other. I still do work a little bit with people with disabilities. Pamela has counseled many. She's a grief therapist. And the hardest part is finding people to work with people with disabilities. And so I had this idea, what if we had a show and we had a couple of people who work with people with disabilities from different agencies, and that we then turn it into a training film. So the version you'll see out there across the country is this version, but then we're going to make another version that agencies, health agencies can use to show their new hires and use it however they want them. We're not going to tell them how to use it. Just that here is somebody that these agencies, I didn't pick them, that these agencies think really embody what a person who works with a disability should be. And so I want to introduce actually an old friend, Vicki Andrus from Living Innovations. Sometimes we pass in the hall. I don't get to the office once in a while. As I say, I'm very, very little part-time, very not at the office much at all. But I still have fond memories of you. And hi, Vicki. How you doing?
Hi, Ronnie.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be here.
Yes. And we also have Linda Dawson from One Sky. Yeah. Hi,
How
Linda.
are you?
Yes. Good to see you. And I have not met you before. I'll say that. But I probably will know you. I'll probably know people like you who I would look at and I would say, that one there should be doing this work, you know. And so we're just going to ask you questions and just be yourself. Try not to be nervous. I know it's hard to say. I mean, almost everybody is.
Easier said than done.
I know. Right. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Let's go do personal stuff first. How long have you been in this work? And
Okay.
anything about you personally. And if there's any connection to disabilities before you started working in this.
I really had no real connection with disabilities short of a distant relative that was born with cerebral palsy that I didn't know very well.
Okay.
Knew of him, really. Mine was more that I had decided to go back to college, kind of a midlife change.
What year are we talking here?
2004, I went back to UNH. And more than anything at this age, going back, it was more to see if I could do it type thing.
That's tough, isn't it?
It was exciting. It was great.
How did the other students?
I was older than most of my teachers.
How did the other students treat you?
They were great. Many of them used me as a mom. Had a mom
I
on
can see
campus.
that.
But,
I can see that.
but anyway, make a long story short, I found my way to recreational therapy. And really loved it. It's a great department at UNH with rec therapy. But I really had no background in disabilities. But what's important for what we're here today for was my favorite population was developmental disability. We'd go out and work in various schools and do clinicals and stuff and work with the students that were still in the local school systems, and I just fell in love with this population. So when I graduated and became a recreational therapist, jobs, unfortunately, in 2009 were not a lot of them around, so I went into long-term care, and I also enjoyed working with people with dementia. So I did that for a year.
That's tough, isn't it?
It was tough, and it was bad timing in my life because I had lost, and my dad had died, and a dear friend had died, so it was kind of too much death at the time. I really admire people that can do that for a long time.
That's who Pamela works with.
Yeah, I admire that. It takes a special person, I think, to work with that. I enjoyed it, but it was just kind of too much. So I left after a year and really sat back and took stock and said, what do I want to do? And I thought, I want to work with developmental disability. Unfortunately, there aren't, at least I was not able to find any positions for recreational therapists in developmental disability. So I just kind of took the leap and said, I'm gonna work in direct care. Didn't really know what it was. I walked into it very, very naively when I look in hindsight, but I loved the population. And so I just thought, well, I'll just do this for a little bit, for like 6 months to a year and get some experience working with the population under my belt. And I never left. That's basically it.
And this could be an odd question, and Pamela, break in at any time, but when you were young, and can you remember the first time you took notice of somebody with a disability, and how did you feel when you saw them?
I don't remember my first time.
Or any time.
More than anything, I think what I remember from in my past was not knowing how to be around somebody who had a disability. I remember always wanting to do the right thing, but not knowing what that was and feeling awkward and stuff. And I'll be truthful, there are times when I still am that way with a new individual that I haven't gotten to know yet. I've learned a lot of things not to do.
What have you learned not to do?
What have I learned not to do? I've learned not to treat them any different than anybody else in the world. Honestly, that's the biggest thing.
Which is the best way, Vicki.
It's
really, you're empowering them.
Exactly, and it's I've noted in the it'll be 7 years in February that I've worked for Living Innovations. I think the most difficult thing that I watch is when people, I was probably one of them, but when people treat someone with a disability, dramatically differently, or worse yet, talk to the person next to them instead of talking directly to the individual, as though they need to have a buffer.
That's the big one.
That drives me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
I'm always out, and I'm sure Linda, she's over there nodding her head.
Yes,
It's you redirect the individual to talk to our supported individual.
I get that when I go shopping with my wife in Market Basket. They, how is he doing today? Stuff like that. And hey, I'm right here. Can't see me? So I know what that's like.
But it's true, and it's very offensive. It's very offensive.
They're not trying to offend, but
exactly.
It just means that that was never your natural impulse.
Right.
If you were introduced with somebody with a disability, even though they would be with somebody else, you would talk to the person with a disability.
Yeah.
And you can't teach that.
Yeah.
And maybe you can teach it, but it's like
I think it's all about education, though.
Yeah, you do?
I do.
I
think
know.
You can educate. I think the public needs to be educated.
But what I'm getting at, you can make them say the words, but when it's not their natural reaction, that's your natural reaction.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You're not a
Right.
square peg in a round hole.
Right.
This is your natural reaction.
Right.
People with disabilities. She wants to say something.
That's all innate in you,
Yeah.
Vicki. And so that's probably why you're so drawn to do the work.
Yeah.
Because it's so important when you're able to, because you know that person needs to be empowered, that person needs to be heard.
To me, it's all
Yeah.
about giving them a voice.
That's right.
And I
That's
cannot
right.
tolerate watching somebody
That's right.
not be allowed to have their voice.
Exactly.
That's, that goes deep.
Vicki, take a break. I'm going to introduce Linda. Linda. So, same kind of thing. When did you get into this? How did you feel about disabilities? What's your first memory? When did you know that there was some kind of compatibility there, and you weren't horrified or shocked or feeling repugnant by somebody who looked differently?
Well, honestly, I have a child. I had a child in school that needed more assistance than just an average student, and I became frustrated with the system, and so I became an educational advocate through Parent Information Center, because I took it the next step further to find out what I could do for him, and that just generated into every other person I saw. I began working in the school.
Did you think of your son all the time? Did that come back? Did you connect your son to the people later on that
Well, no, what
you knew how to treat them? Because
What it was with
everybody-
my son is what the school was not providing services that they should be for his disability. And I knew that he would not need these services for a long term. But this was early on. I mean, he needed that to become the person he is today.
And you
So-
fought for that.
Oh, fought for it every year.
Okay, so out there, these women, they fight for the people that they're working with.
Right. And then I worked
Yours
in this.
maybe because of your son, you learn this, but
Right.
you fight for anybody you're working with. You're going to be the same way.
Oh,
You're not going to
absolutely.
let them get stepped on, and you're going to
No.
look out for after them. Lee, you look like you want to say something.
No, my mind kind of wanders off, but to me, somebody that helps me, the most important thing is listening to what I say first.
Right.
You know, as somebody with a disability. You know, the people that have helped me the most have listened the best. I mean, that's, to me, the most important.
You agree?
I absolutely agree,
absolutely.
because starting out as the advocate, you had to listen to what the parent was saying about their child and how they weren't getting the services in school, and then you help them with the laws and education and everything to get that better education. That's all we were looking for. We weren't looking for handouts or anything, we were looking for better education so that eventually they would end up out of the system and not, you know, where they should be in the society.
So let's trace back your history. When did you get into this? When did you know you liked to do this work? Let's
I
go
think
back.
it was because of my son.
And what era are we talking about? How long ago? And
You had to ask, right?
well, we know you're not a teenager.
Well, yes.
You don't know that.
I absolutely know it.
Well, he was 4.
Much older.
He was 4 when I started this, and he is 29, so 25 years.
25 years.
So I worked 9 years with the school system, and I worked with another student that had a disability and carried him through. I worked as a paraprofessional.
Oh, cool.
And at that time in school system, they had a course for paraprofessionals to take, and
You're
they
talking
became
25.
accredited.
I just want to get the era.
Yes,
25
years ago.
Okay.
And now I don't even think they have that course anymore. I don't know where the education has gone for that, but it was a really good system to have. And then from there, I got him up until like 6th grade and beyond into high school. And I said, well, I'm really need to do something else. So I went to work for a vendor, and worked for them for 9 years, doing one-on-one and having multiple clients.
And what was that like? And what did you learn?
I learned everything. I did not have formal training in any kind of behaviors. And I learned that I was really good at that. I learned that I could hold myself back from the behavior, and the behavior would go away. So I got, in that job, I got a lot of people with behavioral...
Without using names, can you talk about a real life issue, how you handled it with a client?
Well, we had a young man that was very upset, and he was in a room at the office, and he was throwing chairs. And I had no formal training. I told the manager to leave the room and let me go in. And she said, okay. And I went in the room, and I let him throw a few more chairs. And then I said to him, are you done? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, let's talk about what happened here. Where are your thoughts, and what are your feelings? What's going on with you? I always put it back to him or them.
Linda, that's beautiful.
That's an amazing
That
story,
is
and I don't know how you
beautiful.
teach that, but
Well,
hopefully there's a way.
You knew it innately,
Yeah.
really,
Right.
how to do that.
Right.
Because that's a behavior. Who
Were you
knows what
scared? Were you scared?
Diagnosed with.
Of course, but you never show that fear. You never show that fear. I was out shopping at Walmart, and I could hear this, when we walked in the store, I could hear this customer screaming at the top of his lungs. I told my daughter, go that way, on the other side. So I'm gonna go do something else. And I went over to the guy who was screaming and said to the worker that was with him, do you need some help? So I didn't know that person at all.
See, that's just the way you are.
Yeah.
That's the way you are.
Right.
And that's the challenge for these agencies, how to get people that, I don't know if there's a Rorschach test or what do you do, read the tea leaves, but there's got to be, to find people who are like that.
I think that we are unique, though.
Yeah.
We're unique. I think that up-and-coming DSPs need more education and more, it really would be beneficial if the state adopted some kind of program in the university.
We're back. We're going to focus the last 20 minutes on people both Vicki and Linda work with. Obviously, you could take courses at a college. You can learn from a teacher or professor. Today, these are our professors and teachers. So what you can learn from them is you can't learn out of a book. So I'll ask you to tell a story about someone you've worked with, and then we'll go over to Vicki. Yeah.
Well, I think I've worked with a lot of people with disabilities, but I think that what sets me, and probably Vicki can say yes to this too, is that we don't see a disability. We see an ability, and we focus on that, and that's how we enhance their lives.
Right. Okay. Just tell me a story. Tell me some stories about people you work with.
We have, currently we have a young man that has limited use of one hand, and he, people thought that he could only do one type of job, that was clean a bathroom. And that was okay. I mean, to teach him the skills for that, that's fine. But I took it, I said, if that's the only thing you think he can do, I'm gonna take it a next step. And so we actually put him in a temporary job in a recycling plant, and he was pulling apart car seats. It was very difficult, but he learned the skill. He didn't have all the skills that everyone else did, but he was part of a team, and they accomplished quite a bit. Today, he's working at 5 days a week, which he loves, and he has also, I should mention that he has a communication device. He does not speak. So he is testing cords with both hands at a recycling plant and absolutely loves it. Matter of fact, his job description and his job are in his tablet.
You know what I like about this? It's a job that others might do who don't have a physical issue, but for him, this is something he doesn't do unwillingly. This is something he loves.
Right.
And if you're an employer out there, I mean, your dream employee is who is somebody who's doing it, of course, to get paid, but who actually loves it.
Right. The job is very rote. So, somebody without a disability may not fit into that, or may
No.
not last long at it because it's not enough of a challenge. But we found the challenge for him in that job. And he did have to be, taught the job. He had to learn the skills.
Yeah, yeah. And I know Mike Clement is here from One Sky, and then he'll come back with somebody from the corporate world who hires people with disabilities, and we'll get that take. And who knows, that could even be part of the training film. So maybe we should do that sooner than later. But yeah, that's the thing, that they actually enjoy that and love that road work that someone else wouldn't. I'm not saying everybody with a handicap is going to love it, but there are some who actually thrive on it. Vicki, let's turn over to you. Who do you work with? Does this ring any bells with you?
Oh, many. many.
So you tell me.
It's what we call them at my agency is success stories of and they may not be big to some people, but boy, some things are huge. We had an individual that I just remember working with him years ago, where if he worked in the small job that he had for an hour to an hour and a half, that was really all he could do. And I think he did it maximum. He worked up to about 3 days a week at like an hour and a half. And he just psychologically, just emotionally couldn't handle any more than that. And he got to the point where he was working 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. And what I love watching when these things happen is watching their self-esteem, just like anybody else in the world. How proud they are to have a job, how proud they are to be making their own money, to feel like everybody else.
And I'm proud of the fact that you didn't give up on them because they could only do an hour and a half. I'm proud of the employer that didn't give up on them because
I'm not going to lie, there were times,
Sure,
and there are other agencies, not other agencies, but other
employers,
other people involved in these things that sometimes when I started to say, I don't think he can, don't push him too hard. I can't remember who it was, to tell you the truth, but somebody said, don't underestimate, push a little. And I'm learning along the way all this time, but that was a huge lesson for me. Is don't underestimate the capabilities and the abilities of individuals. And
you agree?
Absolutely agree, because
the gravest insult you can give anybody, disabled or enabled, is underestimate.
Exactly.
Right.
Don't prejudge them. Let them give them a chance.
Right. And we address the ability on the job, and we cater to that's how they learn the job.
I think it's really important on the job site to teach the employer that aspect, though, because what I've noticed over and over and over is that the employer, they don't know, and it's no fault of their own, but they don't know, and they tend to underestimate what the individual can do. And I think it's our job as the job coach, or whatever we're called in any given situation, to let them know, let's give it a try. Right. I think you do need an employer that's willing to try, willing to work with you.
What did it mean to this fellow who now is up to 4 hours a day? Well, how did he feel about himself? How did he change?
He felt great about himself. He just, like anybody else, he just felt really, really good about himself.
And you saw the difference, Vicki?
Oh, absolutely. Everybody did.
Yeah.
See, this is the thing, this is the film that I was thinking of just for people who work with people with disabilities, but this is the edited down version of this could go to employers. So to look at this and see, okay, you might think this is, you're giving them a few needed dollars, but what you're doing as an employer is maybe restoring more of their humanity that's been taken away physically and maybe emotionally by society. You're telling them, no, you're just as human as everybody else. You love doing something that you love to do, and so can they. And they're no different in that respect. So, so you could say, I think everybody being in done the same work later on in life, working with people with disability, you can look at yourself as a worker and say, well, this isn't really much of a job. I'm not a professor, or I'm not I didn't invent the wheel or something like that. But I'm telling you, you can invent all the wheels the hell you want. you're not gonna be able to change people's lives like this.
My daughter,
Like this.
My daughter asked me a while ago, she's like, Mom, you went back to college for 5 years full time and you're doing this, because I'm not working as a recreational therapist because that's not
Right.
the position. And it's not, how do you say it? Shoot the elephant in the room. There's not a lot of money in this.
No,
Right.
no,
Trying to
there's
make
not.
ends meet is really difficult. It is really,
Right.
really difficult. I've made the conscious choice that it's worth it. I've made, I'm not
Right.
going to go into it, but I've made adjustments in my life and my expectations of what I have and don't have accordingly, but it's a conscious choice.
So you made the conscious choice. This is worth it. Both of you have.
Right.
Yeah, I
Now
fell
it's-
in love
now,
with working with these people.
Now it's up to the state governments to
Yeah,
say
the
you
state
need to
needs
make
to
a
step up.
conscious judgment that this is worth it, that these people are worth
Absolutely.
it. When you are on the same page as Linda and Vicki, then you can hold your head up high.
Yeah.
But when you just think you're maybe throwing somebody a bone here,
Yeah.
no.
No.
You have a chance to really do the most important work. We all live surrounded by amazing noise out there. Grown adults making fools of themselves, thinking that what they're doing is really important, that every word that comes out of their mouth is important. What you're doing is important. What you're doing. I can take care of myself. Pamela can take care of herself. Mike, we're not sure about. We're not sure. But when you help somebody to take care of themselves like this, they take care of themselves. They work. They do these things. That is huge. The big quality is acceptance. And it's not like it's one size fits all. It's not like all people with some kind of disability, physical or mental or emotional. It's not one size fits all. They're all different.
Yeah.
And the biggest quality is acceptance. My story is that one time, years ago, I was working with someone, and I'm not even going to say male or female. I want to try to keep it as vague as possible. And I was taking them home at the end of the day. And I'm going down 95, and I'm going the speed limit. And cars are whizzing by me. And she says to me very politely, she says, Ron, you have my folder on your dashboard. And I had a folder on a dashboard covered in a manila folder. And that folder on a dashboard, that's got my personal information there. I don't want these people to see it who drive by. Now, I could laugh or I could say something snide or what the hell's wrong with you. But what I said was, oh, I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I just wasn't thinking.
That's right.
And this is almost like a high spiritual quality. Accept them for what they are. There's a wise saying about standing next to somebody and taking them one step further. It's not the step that you think, it's the step that they're capable of taking at that moment.
I've always taken note of when there's the annual review, the annual ISA, and I thought, how would it feel to be the person who the ISA is for, with a room full of people? I've sat in an ISA, I'm sure you have too,
Yes.
sat in an ISA meeting where there
define
are
ISA for the public.
ISA is the individual service agreement. It's
But yearly.
a year, it's an annual meeting where everyone involved in the individual's team gets together and discuss, and helps the person, hopefully, helps the person decide what their
Right.
goals are going to be, which is how they get funding. They have to have goals and methods to reach those goals on an annual basis. But I've sat in those meetings, as I'm sure all of us have, where the individual's sitting there and there's like 9 other people in the room, and they're all telling this person
And they're all speaking
what they need to do.
And they're all speaking legalese. They're all speaking
and the person
professional
sitting
talk
there like this,
with
and
acronyms
you
they
talk
don't
about
understand.
success story. One
Yeah.
of the people I worked with one time, it was one of my fondest memories, was an individual that went through this on a yearly basis, and prior to the ISA one year, I said, what do you want to say? And we sat down
Oh,
with a
that's good,
tablet.
Vicki. That's
We
good.
sat down and I said, what do you want to say? This is your meeting.
Right.
This isn't their meeting. They're
Right.
there for you.
Right.
And we went through this whole thing, and he ran the meeting. It was so cool. He ran the meeting, and he told each and everybody, this is what I would like. He was polite. He presented in a manner that I don't think I've ever seen him do that before. He kind of took charge, and he owned it.
Yeah, he wasn't a potted plant on the table.
To me, that's a huge part of what we do,
Oh,
is
yeah.
being their advocate, teaching them to advocate for themselves.
themselves.
Not just us running around doing it, but teaching them to advocate for themselves is huge. It's huge.
That whole empowerment is so important for everybody. When you look at that, if you feel empowered, what happens?
Yep.
Right.
And you saw that in that meeting when that
Yep.
gentleman just was able to conduct it in the manner that he wanted. That's his meeting.
It was
That's
cool
right.
because everybody just shut up and listened. It was
Wonderful.
very neat.
I think that their voice has been lost.
Yeah.
Their voice has been lost in a sea of paperwork and funding and everything. I bet if you ask them what they want, they would want a better quality of life. And currently, when we don't have the trainings to make the DSPs better, direct support professionals, and we don't have an avenue to become a DSP and get a living wage for the work we do, then the training and all of that, it doesn't mean anything because they still don't have a voice.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So it's really important to advocate for yourselves in that perspective. Okay, this is what needs to be done if we're going to have the best quality
Right.
to help people.
Yeah, not enough of us are standing up for them.
The part of this, speaking as somebody with a disability now, that is hard for us is I knew who I was before my stroke. Now I'm sitting here before you, kind of going, who the heck am I and what can I do? And it's a hard feeling, going, okay, I used to be really good at doing these things. Now I'm not real good at doing those things. What am I good at? And, it takes other people to help me to do just about anything these days. And a lot of people don't understand that. Do I have, am I a good person? Yeah, I am. I think, I'm a decent human being, but I need help in just about anything that I do. So it's harder for me to fit in to the world, really. Without people helping me up the stairs here, I don't get into the building, And that kind of applies to anything that I do. So,
And there's that whole
when
identity.
people are asking me, what do you want to do? My answer normally is, I'm not sure, And I'm a smart human being, but I don't know what I'm capable of at this point.
Lee, I want you to say a few words about, because your architectural firm, TMS out of Portsmouth, had you come back to do a presentation. Tell us about that.
They didn't have me come back. I asked them if I could come back and do a presentation. So I was the one that,
Well, they didn't tell you to
pursued
get
it.
lost.
No, they didn't. But it was,
I mean, they
I went
support the
back
show every year.
with a reason, that was
What did you do?
important to me.
Tell us what you did.
Well, I presented a video that I'd put together about my experience since my stroke, and basically the people that have helped me, because they're a big portion of that. My now ex-wife and my daughter are a big portion of that, and other people, some of who've been on this show were a portion of that. And I wanted to introduce myself to the younger people in the office that I didn't know, because a kayak that I made is hanging on the wall, and I want to be known as more than just a kayak hanging on the wall. And I had a lot of good friends that I wanted to shake their hand and say thank you. That was what was important to me. They underwrite this show, so I owe those people a lot. I wanted people who might not know the people in the firm to understand what they've done for me as a human being, not as an architect necessarily. So that was why I did it. You know, it was for many reasons, but it, you know, and I have the video that I did that I'm going to show again to another group of friends for other reasons. You know, people that have helped me, who didn't even know me, the version of me before. You know, this version of me is a little more challenging to know. So, but there are important things there that, you know, I feel like I'm about a sophomore in high school. You know, ask me what I want to be when I grow up. I have no clue. You know, it's kind of scary a little bit. You know, I'm 69 years old. So I need a lot of help, you know, I mean, and good people help me, and I'm thankful for it, I guess. That I think is primarily why I am on this show and why I do what I do when I go to colleges and talk about people with brain injuries. You know, I try to present us as a group of people that is diverse. We're capable of many different things, some of which you might not even think we're capable of. And don't sell us short. You know, we have good senses of humor. We are decent human beings, most of us. So give us a chance. You know.
I mean, what I admire about you is that, we usually talk this nice to each other. But I mean, really, this is one of the strongest people I've ever met. I mean, yes, I see the frailty, but I have to tell you that last week the elevator here is like 200 years old. It still has horse dung on the seat there. They used to carry horses up here. I don't know how old it is. They couldn't get this damn thing working, and so he had to walk up. He's not going to sit in the car or down in the lobby. He wants to be a part of the show. So there's this winding, narrow staircase there. And he walked up that staircase to be on the show.
So now they expect me to do it every week.
No. No, we're going to get you the horse that did that stuff on the wheelchair, and you're going to ride him up here in the ramp. How about that?
You saw a horse? I didn't see any horse running.
We got to wind up, and you're going to say. Hi, I'm Ronnie Tomanio from Don't Diss My Ability, and we're at John Lovering's home studio. It's a little chilly here, John. I'm just saying, you know, I could use a thermos bottle, but it's all right. We're used to these conditions. We did filming at the station. We had 2 DSPs, and that's a day support person. And those are the people who could be anybody, your neighbor, your sons, friends. You don't need 9 degrees to be a DSP to work with somebody with a disability. And that's a whole nother kettle of fish there, that there isn't really a lot of extensive training before you do this work. So one day you might be working at Walmart, and the next day you could be working with somebody with a severe disability. And so we're not going to solve all the problems of the world, but we figured that we would make a DSP training film. So we've already had 2 wonderful ladies who are real role models for what it is to be someone who works with someone with a disability. They did a great job. After the show, I kind of thought, we've heard one side of it, but let's hear from a parent whose child is, all of a sudden someone comes to your house and they're going to take your child away for the day and do things with them. And I would think that's got to give you a little case of the heebie-jeebies or something. So I just wanted to talk to Stacey a little bit about what it is like to be a mother of someone with a disability. She has a son, and I'm going to give you a little background. I'm not going to go right into the DSP part of it. I'm going to ask you what it was like when you were found out that your son had a disability, the first time you heard that.
It was very overwhelming. At this point now, I'm quite used to it. He's now 32. we started realizing that there was something that was a little bit different. He was about 3.5.
But nothing right in the beginning when he was born? Nothing?
No.
Okay.
There was no sign at all. He has a form of autism, pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified. So, and he had none of the typical characteristics that one does with that you consistently think with autism, which is pretty much how that works. Is that one person with autism, one person with autism. So he
'Cause
got the
it's a wide
diagnosis when he was
spectrum.
absolutely.
Yeah, there's some people with autism who could talk, some who are pretty much nonverbal. There are people on the spectrum, Asperger's, who have brilliance, but tunnel vision in one particular area of life, and almost don't know what to do with the other facets of life.
And
So you have all of that. So when you say autistic, it doesn't mean one size fits all. Right.
And our son is kind of in the middle of all of the above. He is verbal. He went through public school with help.
And how did he do there?
He held his own. He was in special ed classes and had an ed tech, but he was able to do some regular classes. And he does not have Asperger's. He continues to be a little bit developmentally delayed, but he's gainfully employed now, and
Where does he work?
he works at Walmart.
Okay.
So
Good for Walmart. There's some great companies out there.
I
to
speak
do these
very
things.
highly of Walmart. That is Anthony's. He's had 2 jobs since he was 16 years old. He's worked since he was 16, and Walmart's only his 2nd job. So he has been there a long time.
What's a long time?
He's in his 12th year.
12 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's remarkable
He
in
is-
this age where people change jobs like they change shirts.
Yeah,
you know?
no, he has been there 12 years.
What do
and
they think of him?
They think very highly of him. They have made many concessions over the years for him.
What kind of concessions would they have to have made?
When they changed hours in a department, they realized that they wouldn't accommodate Anthony's. They allow him to work that accommodate his lifestyle with the in-home support that we have, so that somebody can bring him to work knowing that his dad and I both work. They
And that would
will
be a
tweak his
DSP? Would that be a DSP?
Yeah.
And would they stay with him there?
At this point, yes, because the DSP that works with him in the morning also now is a job coach. In previous years, no, he would get dropped off by the DSP, and then a job coach would assist him when he needed assistance.
Okay, but now this DSP is a job coach. So how long is this DSP, that's day support person, if you've just tuned into this, how long has this particular DSP worked with your son?
She's been with us for a couple of years now.
Okay.
Maybe 3 years. We have been very blessed that we don't go through a lot of DSP workers. When the ones that will start working with us typically stay for a number of years.
Were you a little bit nervous the first time your son went out with somebody?
Absolutely. And if there's a change, or especially when he was younger, we started having somebody come in to the homes so that Anthony could start to have a life outside of mom and dad when he was about 15 or 16 years old. And it was really hard then, because it was something that we had to try to fit in around school, in his extracurricular activities. And I was not comfortable with it. I really was not comfortable with it, and kept feeling like this was something that we had to do for him, because he needed to learn how to have a life outside of us, and that I needed to begin to learn how to trust and to lay the groundwork, because the comfort of school was going to end soon. And so, this was nothing we used when he was younger. We didn't need it. I had a job that I purposely worked where my schedule would be around my kids. But as he got older, I started to see it's time to start laying the groundwork for him to start to separate from us, not only emotionally but physically, because he had to have a life that didn't involve mom and dad. And this absolutely has served the need. it's hard. It's until you get to know somebody. I had only a couple of times really, and since my son was 15, so that is 15, 17 years we've been using this. 2 or 3 I haven't felt comfortable with. And
Well, that's without using names or disparaging anybody else, because not everybody is made for every profession. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a dentist. I mean, you should never let me come close to you with an electric instrument. No good. But so nobody's good at everything. So it's not like a judgment on them as a human being. It's just that some people are just not cut out for this. So tell me what didn't work. Tell me what didn't work.
And I don't even so much if it meant that they weren't cut out for this line of work, but they weren't cut out for my son.
Okay.
Because it's definitely a mess of personalities. Some people are very set in their ways, and this is how it's going to be, and this is what you need to do. And hearing a tone of voice I didn't like, and I'm like, this isn't going to work for my kid.
So if the person came in and kind of like lay down the law, this is what you're going to do and not do, and blah blah blah.
The other thing there was one I personally found offensive. It was a young girl that had came in and not only started telling him, this is what you need to do, she turned to me and started telling me what to do.
Geez, and I know you a little bit, and I think that's dangerous.
She didn't last. Yeah, I was right on the phone, and I said,
You didn't hit her, did you?
Because she was young. No. This was somebody that, okay, what does she have the job? For a year or two, not only did I work in special education, but I have been raising this. This is my life. You having a new job, and so that I didn't appreciate.
And to step back, to show you how complicated it is to be a DSP, you may know one person inside out and be great with them. That doesn't mean that's translatable to somebody else. It doesn't at all. That's what the difficulty of the job is.
Absolutely.
What may be a good tactic for one person may be a disaster for another person. So you can't be a DSP with a mindset that I've got this down pat. I don't need to be learning from the parent or anything. I know what to do. I've done this X amount of years with this person. I've got it down cold. No, you need to learn from the parent.
Absolutely. And there's on the flip side of that, I know we've used many women that I liked that were the perfect fit for my house and my family. And then I would hear, because it's a small community, from other special ed parents, I don't like her. I won't let her in my house. How do you like? And I absolutely love her, and she is the perfect person for my son. And so you can really see where it's not just a knowledge, but it's a click of a personality.
Yeah.
And because it becomes such an intimate relationship that you have with the parent, allowing somebody to come into your home really takes a lot of trust and a lot of faith. Little things that people don't take into mind is that every day somebody's walking into my home. So the things that you think of, even small things that you leave out at your house throughout the course of a day, just by your hurrying and having to clean up, or just having normal conversation on what happens in your life, this person who's not part of your family now knows pretty much every area of your life. They're taking care of one of the most important things you have, is your child. So there's a lot of give and take, and you have to have trust and you have to have faith. And it's something that's really hard, especially I think as a special ed parent, because as you have raised your child, you didn't trust a lot of people. You're always on your guard at school. You were always on your guard to make sure that you're going to have to fight for what your child needed. So you're used to being on guard and not trusting somebody else. And the whole table's turned with this, and the only way to make this work for the benefit of our child was I had to relinquish control, and I had to learn to trust.
Two of the hardest things in the world.
Very much. But it has been exponentially the best thing in our child's life. Since the big difference that we were able to see in using a service like this was after our kid graduated high school. Before that, it was, I could take it or leave it, because it wasn't something that we really needed. Once he graduated high school and needed to begin to have a life outside of mom and dad, because mom and dad still had to work, that's when they became such an integral part of our life.
So let's get a little bit more general. And in your opinion, what are some of the characteristics of someone you would think would be a really good DSP? What are the commonalities here?
The things that I have found most important is, one is to be honest. Do what you say you're going to do. If you're going to come at a time, you be there. If you can't make it, you call. That to me is huge, because you have to be dependable. You have to be trustworthy, and you have to be honest. Especially don't do things just because you think you're right, or say that, oh, this is what happened. My son's verbal. My son doesn't lie. Don't tell me something happened, because my son's going to tell me the truth. And when those things don't meet, there's a problem. And it's really hard to try to rebuild your trust with anybody again. And a couple of these situations have happened. So a person just needs to be truthful, and they need to be honest. If you can't handle something, then just say it. And we have gone through a lot of people that just, my son's 32. He's very talkative. He's a big guy. If he intimidates you, then you got to say something.
Yeah.
So that to me is a lot of it. You do not need to have a ton of knowledge. What you need to have is a compassionate heart, and you need to have common sense. And that's one of the big things that I found, is because if you truly are a kind person, you're going to do the right thing. And you're going to ask. People will ask my son, what is it? You know, if you came in and you said, this is what we're going to do, he'd be, I'm not leaving the house. But because if you come in and you work with it as a partnership, and even though it's a paid position, don't act like it's a paid position, act more like a friend. My son truly sees the DSP that works with him, it's his friend, and he will do the things that he knows he's expected to do and that she expects him to do, because he won't disappoint. He doesn't want to disappoint her. And so, you know, you need to be kind. Well, I will. She's my friend. And that kind of thing takes a while to build up. And so, to me, if it's a wonderful job, but you have to kind of be in it for the long haul. You can't pop in and out and do it. I'm going to do it for a couple of weeks and then leave. It takes that long to build up a rapport.
How long do you think?
In my situation, and which is the only one I can speak of, because my son's an interesting man. I'm thinking a couple of months before you really get him, especially to learn all the little idiosyncrasies, or, oh, he said this and this is what they really meant. And you can only gain those things over time, but also by talking. And so a DSP worker has to have an open mind and, you know, talk. If the parents are available in the family, they're the ones that know the kid best. And that's one of the things that I feel very fortunate about, that the ones that we've had have come to know us. They know me very well, know my husband very well. They know our younger son. So whoever they would see, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, how does this work? And they're welcome to the ideas. And then they would share their ideas. I don't have all the answers, and I truly depend on this other person to be part of our support network so that my son has a fulfilling life. And we couldn't do it without them.
It's been a lot of years since I done this. In fact, I couldn't remember, and I'm about to leave totally my last client, and I said, I have no idea how long I've worked with you. And he's autistic. He said 17 years, because he would know. Mm-hmm. 17 years. And, you know, as much as they tell you, or what I'm getting to, as much as they tell you on a professional level that you shouldn't make this a friendship thing, I don't know, that's almost like you're wanting another kind of human being. But I think human beings crave friendship, and I think it's hard to, I mean, there are boundaries and everything like that, but you can be friends and still have strong boundaries. So I wish they would mollify that a little bit, and just don't see them as anybody like a stranger that you don't really have to care about. I think you do, but you can do both. You can be friends and be a boundary. When I told him that I was leaving, he didn't believe me. And he was laughing. And I said, well, no, I really am leaving. I'm giving you my last day. You know, the mother said, be very clear on the date. When you tell him the date, keep telling him the date. And it was emotional for me. You know, they can't say, well, this is a job. You shouldn't be emotional about this stuff. You know, you shouldn't get it, you know, watch your boundaries. But you can do both. To reiterate, you can do both. And you should do both. If you just think of that person you're working with as a paycheck, I don't think you should be doing this, you know. My
and
opinion.
that's exactly the difference between a person that's doing it for a job and the person that understands what the job entails. And most anything, it's no different in the way you describe that as one working in education. It's the same feeling like a teacher. I worked as an ed tech for 18 years. That's the same type of feel you have. You can understand the professional boundaries, but yet you truly care about these people and you care about the folks that you work with. And you can have that emotional bond and still have the boundaries. And when somebody is intimately involved in your life, is caring for your loved one in any capacity, it's totally different than hiring a plumber or electrician to come into my house or somebody to fix something. You've just spent 17 years working with a person. Somebody else is the most important thing in their life. And we've often had a hard time with that, with the boundaries. We've had, at one time we had a young woman that worked with my son for 10 years. As a matter of fact, and we just got lucky, they remembered each other from high school. She was just a year or two ahead of him in high school, but obviously because of his disabilities, she was one of the, I feel so fortunate that she was in our life, and when she left to move up in the company and no longer was his direct support worker, it was like our world just turned upside down. She has since left the company. They still care about each other all these years later, and Anthony's the godfather to her two child children.
God.
So he has two godkids.
Oh my God.
And this is from his direct support worker that he had. He is.
That's a remarkable
I
story.
will show you the pictures of him and his godchildren.
Yeah.
He goes to visit them. And this was a relationship that began by her coming in our house many, many years ago. She has not been with him for many years now. I've been we personally have been very fortunate in the support that we've had to help us with our son so that he can have a life outside of us, and he's happy. My son is the happiest person I know. He truly is, and the direct support workers in his life is what have done it, because he doesn't need my husband and I, and that's what we strive to work for his whole life. Is I wanted him to get to a point where he didn't emotionally need us for every minute of the day, and he doesn't. He has his schedule Monday through Friday, and this is what these folks are doing, and I have no part of it.
They're the ones I know and remember. They're remarkable. After we did this show, we had the two DSPs on, the two women who were doing this a long time. Afterwards they said they were really overqualified. They should have grabbed the big bucks if they were just thinking in material terms, but they can't give the work up. What it does for their own being, enriching their own self, is just too much to give up. Yeah, they stand out to me. And the other thing I want to say is, for the new DSPs who are coming on board, you would not know about where we've come from. I've had the old radio show, I've had a mother on who was probably in her 70s, who talked about how her son, when her son was born, the doctor just said, you need to put him in the state institution and just forget about him. And those state institutions were horror stories, beyond anything you can imagine. So, yes, is it a perfect system? No. But where we've come from in a few decades, 40 years or so, to now is light years. So there may be a lot of things in the world we can't solve and seem to be going in the other direction. But this change, where you send out a person with someone with a disability, and where they pair up and they work together, that is just the best thing in the world, you know.
Absolutely. The things that my son is able to experience away from my husband and I, and that's the big thing, especially for an adult with disabilities, is that they know they're an adult, and so you don't want to be with mom and dad all the time. And the experiences that he's been able to have in the community, I don't think would have happened 20 years ago. Even seeing the difference since my son was a child, the opportunities are tremendously different.
And businesses coming a long way too. They're getting enlightened. They were maybe a tough sell in the first part, but Walmart, Home Depot, a lot of these companies
it was a tough sell. We were very fortunate that we had a very, very dedicated woman that owned an employment agency that worked with kids with disabilities, and she basically wore them down. Because he had in his mind this is where he wanted to work. And it took a little bit of convincing, and he has never, he's done so well. It's an impact also in the community too, because we'll go out and it seems my son knows everybody in the area.
They're not invisible anymore.
And
it's not a shock.
Absolutely not. And he'll go places and he makes friends with everybody too. So, and I'm like, how do you know this person? Oh, I swim with them at the Dover Indoor Pool. And how do you know this person? Well, I talk to them here. Well, I see them at Planet Fitness. And it doesn't matter. A teenager through somebody, like where he'd to somebody 80 years old. Anthony's friends with everybody. And I'm like, how do you know them? Oh, I see her at Target. Ooh, Target, you don't work at, but he goes there. So how do you know him? Well, when we walk downtown Portsmouth, we go to Blue Moose Music. I mean, everywhere he goes, he engages people, and he's able to have these opportunities because of having a great direct support worker. He volunteers, and his volunteer work to him is as important to him as him going to work. And he knows people count on him and depend on him. And this is through the thanks to the direct support worker that's in our homes. Like, you know what? People do enough for you. You need to give back. And they've given him some choices. He's been at the same place for years.
I love this. I know Johns, I know we've got to wrap it up. So but I thank you so much for coming in and doing this. And buddy,
I thank you so much for having me. And anybody that does this for work, you know, God bless you. You have no idea the difference you make in people's lives.
Thank you, Stacey. You've just seen two remarkable women from two different agencies. We asked the agencies to send someone they thought was a real role model. They hit the proverbial nail on the head. They were great. They should be doing this work. They love this work. They love working with people with disabilities. We could all learn from them. The other piece that we thought was needed was from the other side of the coin. What was it like for a parent whose child has a disability, and what are their fears and what are their hopes, and what is their assessment of what it takes to work with their child? And so we're giving you that. Thank you. We hope it helps you in this profession.